Sankirtanaji, Shri Prabhupada ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya
Chakshurumilitam yena
Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagatatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Sachivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijanasahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vitakam Vitamscha Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Apchakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwabhanu Sute Devi Pranavani Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, what chapter are we discussing today? Chapter 12. And the title of chapter 12? So, Krishna has been speaking about progressive stages of how to approach him. And he began the section that we completed last time by speaking about, in the 8th verse, this very high platform of bhakti, in which one is spontaneously attracted to Krishna. Just as a child is spontaneously attracted to candy. The pure devotee is spontaneously and naturally attracted to the Supreme Lord. In such a way, one fixes his mind upon Krishna because it is so pleasing. When we choose about things to think about, we think about the things that are most pleasing to us. So, Krishna thus spoke in the 8th verse about this very nice. But what happens? What do we do if we are not spontaneously attracted to Krishna? What did Krishna say we can do?
Follow the Vaidhi sadhana.
Follow the Vaidhi sadhana. The regulator principles of bhakti. And what is the goal of practicing the Vaidhi sadhana bhakti principles?
Come to the spontaneous love stage.
To awaken spontaneous love. Right? Just like if I have a match, what is the goal of that matchstick? To invoke fire, to bring fire out from that matchstick. So if I strike that match on a very particular surface, fire will come out from this matchstick. So similarly, if one engages the heart and mind in very prescribed processes of bhakti, then the spontaneous love for Krishna will emerge. Because what is our constitutional, natural position?
To love Krishna.
To
To love Krishna.
love Krishna. But in our unnatural state, we have tried to love so many other things. And each and every object of our affection results in the end, dissatisfaction. So, the natural tendency of the living entity is to love. That is actually the activity that gives it pleasure. And we see it around us, right? Everybody is expressing their love for so many different things, people, animals, pets, houses, cars, relationships, jobs, nations, societies, clubs, all these things. But at the end of the day, our natural, eternal love is with Krishna. So Krishna said, if you have not spontaneously awoken your love, no problem. Just practice these regulator principles, and in this way, you will awaken this. But then he said, well, what if you can't practice bhakti, the regulator principles? Then what to do?
Work for me.
Work for me. And what does work for me? What does Krishna mean by saying work for me? That sounds like bhakti, right?
Karma Yoga.
Karma yoga. And what is an example, or how can we explain karma yoga in simple terms?
Give the fruits to Krishna.
Give the fruits to Krishna. You do your work. You do what activity you like. And in this case, it even gives some of it to Krishna. And we see many people following this principle, right? Many well-wishers of the spiritual community will support in very nice ways. And we should understand that there's a very important role they play. Sometimes we think, oh, they're coming, but they're not chanting, they're not doing this. Well, we look at what they're not doing. But instead, we should appreciate, no, they're doing something. They're sacrificing something in service of Krishna.
Yes.
If nothing else, even their time to just come and see Krishna. Okay? So it is a step towards this path. So we should appreciate and also try to encourage and foster versus try to, say, oh, they're not even wearing tulsi mala. No neck beads, no chanting beads. That is not the right way. We should understand that Krishna says, if you can't do this bhakti, there's still something for you, right? And that is to begin to serve. And so sometimes people can work for Krishna, either giving money, maybe volunteering. We are missing this Rath Yatra festival. But there are many devotees, I'll say, that come forward during Rath Yatra and only during Rath Yatra. And they serve Lord Jagannath. And they serve with the utmost enthusiasm. And it's come to the point where they'll call months before, reserve this service please for me. They have this attachment to rendering some service. You may not see them the other 364 days in the year, but still year after year, they're rendering that service. So, in this way, they're working for Krishna in some way. We have the same thing with different, donors, sponsors. They may sponsor some festival or a Sunday feast, and it is this progressive step in their devotional service.
Yes.
So then Krishna said, well, if you can't do that, then at least give up the results of your work to some charitable cause, some mode of goodness activity, including the karma kanda processes, right? So you do some sort of regulated activity, right? And this begins the process of sacrifice. Arjun, do you like to sacrifice? We don't like it. And the reason we don't like is because we think, I am the doer. I am the control.
I have a question.
Yeah.
no, no. Here, when we are giving, some people give donation for like the COVID relief and all that, right? During this time, many other places. So, is that included here as this part? Like, is the Krishna saying this way only? Like, if you are not giving it to me, give it to people who are affected by famine or drought. Can we say that?
Yeah. These are all kind of charities in the mode of goodness,
Okay.
right? So it is better than unregulated sense enjoyment.
Hmm.
So it is a good activity. But as in example of COVID relief, we can find ways if we can add a spiritual element to it, we accentuate what is done. But it's not that we should minimize what is being done. Right? So it is better than nothing. We should help support humanitarian efforts. It starts to develop the consciousness of I am not my only person on this planet. I should care about others, right? And I begin to understand this mood of humility. Right? So these are all progressive stages to ultimately understanding. And what we'll see now, starting in verse 13, is the very amazing qualities that develop from the devotee. And these are the endearing qualities that are very dear to Krishna. When one exudes these qualities, they become very dear to the Supreme Lord. So, when we look at these qualities, we can also understand them and think about them from the context of just in general society. Imagine if the world was full of people with these qualities. How would we envision the situation? What kind of wonderful existence we would have if everybody had these types of qualities. Like, even if you remove the devotional aspect of it, which of course these qualities cannot develop any other way, but if you did out of just discussion point, you can see that these are very, very sublime qualities. And so from here until the end of the chapter, Krishna is going to speak about these qualities and who is very dear to Krishna. Right? So let us read verse 13, 14. Somebody would like to read the verse and we can read the purport together a little bit?
You can wait.
I'll try the Sanskrit.
Yeah.
Adveshta sarvabhutanam maitraha karuna evacha nirmamo nirankarha kara sama dukkha sukha shami santosha satanam yogi yatama dridha nishchaya मयि अर्पिता मनो बुद्धिर यो मद भक्तः समे प्रिया.
Translation?
One who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor, and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me.
Report?
Coming again to the... Can I read? Thank you. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Coming again to the point of pure devotional service, the Lord is describing the transcendental qualifications of a pure devotee in these two verses. A pure devotee is never disturbed in any circumstances, nor is he envious of anyone, nor does a devotee become his enemy's enemy. He thinks, this person is acting as my enemy due to my own past misdeeds, so it is better to suffer than to protest. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.8, it is stated, Tate nukampam su samik samano bhujana ivatma kritam vikambhak. Whenever a devotee is in distress or has fallen into difficulty, he thinks that it is the Lord's mercy upon him. He thinks, thanks to my past misdeeds, I should suffer far, far greater than I am suffering now. So it is by the mercy of the Supreme Lord that I am not getting all the punishment I am due. I am just getting a little by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of God. Therefore, he is always calm, quiet, and patient despite many distressful conditions.
A devotee is also always kind to everyone, even to his enemy. Nirmama means that a devotee does not attach much importance to the pains and trouble pertaining to the body because he knows perfectly well that he is not the material body. He does not identify with the body, therefore he is freed from the conception of false ego and is in happiness and distress. He is tolerant and he is satisfied with whatever comes to the grace of the Supreme Lord. He does not endeavor much to achieve something with great difficulty. Therefore, he is always joyful. He is a completely perfect mystic because his senses are controlled. He is determined. He is not swayed by false arguments because no one can lead him from the fixed determination of devotional service. He is fully conscious that Krishna is the eternal Lord, so no one can disturb him. All these qualifications enable him to fix his mind and intelligence entirely on the Supreme Lord. Such a standard of devotional service is undoubtedly very rare, but a devotee becomes situated in that stage by following the regulative principles of devotional service. Furthermore, the Lord says that such a devotee is very dear to him, and the Lord is always pleased with all his activities in full Krishna.
So, we see here how very many qualities described here. And again, this is the first of 8 verses that Krishna is going to speak about this. So, which one should we discuss first? Which one's jumped out to you?
Not envious.
Not envious. It is actually, it is the main one in this verse. So, what is envy? First of all, let's define what is envy.
Is envy a negative form of jealousy?
It's okay, a negative form of jealousy.
It's worse than jealousy.
It's worse than jealousy. It's enhanced, supercharged, turbocharged jealousy. In what way?
It's like if you are not, it's something like you are not happy because something going wrong in your life, but you're not happy because somebody else is happy. So is that envy then?
That is a symptom of envy, that when we see somebody else experiencing something good, we feel pain. How that's possible? But that's envy.
That's envy.
We see somebody else experiencing, special mercy, gets to do arti first, or gets to, special mercy of the guru, something, and then we feel pain. Nobody's felt this, right? Never happened, right?
No.
That's why we're all
Only
laughing,
there.
because it's there.
It's only there.
But we find that, and that is the symptom of envy. So what is the definition of envy? Anybody knows?
When someone has something or is doing something or receives some kind of happiness, and then you don't want them to have it. Not only does it pain you, but you don't want them to have it either.
Wishing ill on somebody for their fortune?
Yeah, these are all like what
Symptoms.
happens with envy, these like kind of
Okay.
secondary emotions.
Okay.
So envy, first of all, we should understand. Envy is the root cause of our existence in this material world. Because who are we envious of?
Krishna.
Krishna. Now imagine if we could be envious of our Supreme Father, the Supreme Lord, our most dearmost protector and companion, then who could be spared of our envy? So what envy is, you mentioned jealousy. So it's like jealousy, but a step further. So jealousy is you have something nice, I also want it. You have one gulab jamun, I would like a gulab jamun. That's jealousy.
Okay.
Envy is you have a gulab jamun, I would like a gulab jamun, but I don't want you to have one also. See? Now it goes a step further. It's very evil. That not only I want what you have, but I don't want you to have it. And so this manifests in so many different forms. But a devotee is free of envy. Right? Has no envy. And Prabhupada talks about, and Krishna says in the verse, is one who is not envious, but a kind friend to all living entities. So who is it difficult to be a friend to? Your
Enemies?
enemies. It's easy to be a friend to a friend, but someone who is inimical to you, it's not so easy to be a friend to. Right? So what this Prabhupada gives us some very nice points, very practical points in the purport about how to see and become friendly in such a situation. So someone is coming and giving me a hard time because they don't like me. How should I see that situation to try to be free of envy in that circumstance? What can I do?
We have to think everyone is a part and parcel of Krishna. That way, if we think that way, then we will not feel what we are feeling at that point of time.
So we see that everybody is part and parcel of Krishna. But now this person is giving me a hard time. They've come and they've slapped me. They've come and they have, ruined something I'm trying to do, or they are criticizing me, or whatever. They're doing something.
I think you should have deserved worse.
Yeah.
So one thinks they should deserve worse.
Past karma.
So let's now break this down very fundamentally, because that can take us to this sort of, masochistic kind of view of like, oh, I like pain, I want pain, right? I should welcome pain. That's not the point here, right? That's not the point. So how does the devotee see that circumstance?
It's my past karma, karmic actions. That's the reason why that person is acting with me.
Okay. So due to my past actions, this person is giving me some trouble. I know then I must have given the same type of trouble to somebody else. How? Because action equals
Reaction.
reaction. So when someone comes and gives me trouble, I can see this is based on my past karma. So then this person that is giving me this trouble, how does a devotee see that person? So he sees the difficulty based on my past karma, but then what is this person's role in that?
He's just a messenger giving
Yeah.
us.
Just the messenger.
Just a messenger.
He is just an instrument of our karma. Just an instrument. So the devotee doesn't see this person is being mean to me. Oh, this person is simply carrying out the karmic reactions I am doing. Because if Krishna did not sanction such an activity, could it happen? Is it possible? No. So a devotee begins to free themselves from the animosity towards the individual. And they see this is simply my karma. As Prabhupada quoted a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, that he thinks that it's the Lord's mercy that he is getting this difficulty for two reasons. Two reasons is the Lord's mercy. Any ideas what any of the two reasons are? How is the difficulty mercy?
I you go ahead.
Well, since it's come sanctioned from Krishna, the reaction could have been much greater. So
Yeah.
it's lesser reaction.
So it's a lesser than I deserve. Krishna is so kind that he's lessening, minimizing my reactions. And the second reason? Think back to Queen Kunti.
Yeah. Want more and more problems, then I will be surrendering more and more to you. I will be dependent more on you. So
The difficulties in the material world. Imagine if the material world was such a place where there were no difficulties. Then we would never have the opportunity to experience the love of Krishna. Because what would be our motivation? Even though something so much greater exists in the spiritual world, so the devotee thinks, boy, the difficulty here, as soon as I get settled, as soon as I think I have everything nicely situated for me and no more disturbances, bam, COVID comes.
Yeah.
And everything is uprooted. And the devotee thinks, another reminder, thank you, Krishna, that this is not a place.
Yeah.
So two ways that the devotee sees the difficulties they face. So when we understand the source of our difficulties, we stop being envious to anybody, including our enemies, right? So when Krishna says is a friend to all living entities, even the living. Do we have any examples we've read in Shastra of great devotees demonstrating this quality?
Haridas Thakur.
Yes, that's the one I was thinking. In which way?
Well, he was ordered by the king, the ruling king of his area, to be beaten in 22 marketplaces because he was from a different than a Hindu background, chanting the holy names. He wanted to make an example of him, and so he was ordered to be beaten in marketplaces until he lost his life. However, Krishna's mercy was that he didn't lose his life, and Haridas Thakur's mercy was that the Sudarshan Chakra was going to be set loose on those two people that were beating him. But Haridas Thakur's mercy was, do not beat them because they are simply executing the order. And so Krishna did not, took his mercy to heart and did not execute. So that's
It's inconceivable.
Yeah.
In the midst of being beaten, publicly, humiliated, Haridas Thakur is praying to Krishna, not protect me, save me from this atrocity. He is saying, forgive these foolish people. They're simply following an ignorant master. How one could be so non-envious. That is like one of the most extreme examples. So much so that when he wasn't dying, he faked his death. Because he knew if he didn't die, those people beating him would be punished for not having carried out the order. Inconceivable. But this is the quality that manifests in devotion service. Any other examples anyone can think of?
Jagai Madai that time with
Okay.
them.
And how?
That's, because I think that's a time when he was being beaten by, Nityananda was being beaten by, I think, Magai. He hit him, Madai, Madai. And that's when, and Sudarshan Chakra was released by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was wanting to kill him, kill Madai. So then when Nityananda says, please don't forgive him for what he has done. So,
So he very quickly forgave him, right? Did not warn the execution, which Krishna was ready to do. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was angry. The devotee, Lord Nityananda, was very merciful. So, any other examples anyone wants to?
Prahlad Maharaj.
Prahlad, yes.
Prahlad Maharaj is tortured in so many ways. But when given a boon, when tempted, with almost forced to take a boon, he asked, "Forgive my father." So no envy in the heart. So this manifests itself when one has true pure consciousness. And so in day-to-day practical life now, when we see this, we should spot out this envious nature in our heart. And I can say this, if we think we don't have any envy in our heart, we are not looking deep enough. It's there. It's there. Until you have come to the pure devotional form, it is there. And we see it symptomatically. When we feel pain at the success of others, it is envy. Right? When someone's actions to us shake our consciousness, and Prabhupada makes a beautiful statement here. He says, does not become the enemy of their enemy. So when we reciprocate with this envious mood, right, it happens. Someone is not doing something so nice to us, and instead of praying for them, we pray for their destruction. But instead we can say, okay, this person is behaving this way as an instrument of my karma, due to their conditioning. So let us hope we all can purify together, seeing we are all part and parcel of Krishna, and all have our own impurities. So, and when you rid this mood of enviousness from the heart, things become so sweet. Envy is such a souring agent to our mood and consciousness. As soon as we become free from envy, we become light, uplifted. The heart becomes liberated from this very heavy and toxic substance. So, and if we see in the devotees, one of the wonderful pastimes I appreciate of being non-envious is of Haridas Thakur as well. But once in Jagannath Puri, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was enjoying, sumptuous prasadam with all of the devotees. And he was personally handing out all kinds of wonderful Lord Jagannath Mahaprasad. And he was actually calling out to Haridas. But Haridas Thakur would not come. And Haridas Thakur's mood, though, is what's most notable. He was not lamenting, oh, these people are enjoying and I cannot enjoy. That's what would be our mood, right? He was not lamenting, oh, they're so lucky and I am so fallen, this is not fair. He was in ecstasy, seeing the devotees receiving the direct mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's own hands, putting food in each of their plates. He was in ecstasy, seeing this. How one can be so selfless. This is the mood of a devotee. And we can imagine in society if everyone was so selfless in this way. We have so much hate and discrimination in our world today. Right? We are going through an incredible movement right now about fighting this hate and discrimination. And we hope it will last. But we know that without a spiritual lens to understand the equality of all of us as part and parcel of Krishna, this hate and discrimination is very difficult to uproot. And we see it's been going on since the beginning of time. Right? So, and what is the cause of that? It's this envy in the heart. So how to get rid of envy in the heart? What are we going to do? Yes.
Sorry, quick question going back to that, if it's okay. Is it
Yeah.
envy in the heart, or is it because we don't realize that we're a spirit soul and not this body, or are they related?
They're all related. They can be based on, the envy manifests as soon as we acquire our bodily consciousness. As soon as I know I'm spiritual part and parcel of Krishna, how there can be envy of anybody? Because we're all related as part and parcel of Krishna. So there's no scope for envy. So it is tied together, just like false ego. Is false ego the cause of all? The false ego is what brings his bodily consciousness in play. So, how to develop this freedom from envy? How to purify the heart of envy? Is it difficult? Does it seem pretty difficult? It's a high platform, right?
Yeah.
Is it important to do?
Yes.
And who benefits when we become free from envy?
Even better.
Everyone.
We benefit and others. Everyone.
Everyone.
Everybody.
We are the prime. We benefit so much. So how to get rid of it?
Chanting.
Chanting. By the process of devotional service. Prabhupada says that such a standard of service is undoubtedly very rare. But a devotee becomes situated in that stage by what? Following the regulative principles of devotional service.
Yes.
So by chanting, these qualities naturally manifest. What other qualities should we talk about? Envy was the big one. Anything else strike anybody?
Equipoised.
Poised. So who is equal in both happiness and distress? In some ways, it's easier to be easier to be equal in distress. We can tolerate some drugs to some degree, but it's difficult to be unmoved when there is great happiness.
Yeah.
So this brings an interesting question. When Krishna says we should be equal in happiness and distress, does that mean we should have no emotions? We should be totally stoic with no mood? But isn't that what it means? Equal in happiness and distress? I should be like a stone. No? What is Krishna referring to here?
The happiness, same level of happiness if you are having when you are happy, the same level of happiness you should be in distress too. But it's impossible, I think.
Okay. So what type of happiness and distress is Krishna speaking about here? I'll come back to that point.
Stress of the body.
Of the body.
Related to the body.
So Krishna is not saying one should be in ecstasy and happiness, right? He's always speaking about the ecstatic symptoms of bhakti. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is demonstrating how one is jumping for joy and gleefully enjoying with his friends and sumptuously honoring prasadam and dancing for the Lord. Does that look like equipoised? Is that equipoised? No.
Oh, sick.
That is ecstatic joy. So when Krishna says equal in happiness and distress, he is speaking about the happiness and distress of the body. One's emotion is not moved or disturbed by any material circumstance. Because one's emotion is fully invested in the spiritual circumstance.
Yeah.
So that it is not that one becomes stone-like.
Right.
Okay.
Bhakti is not to be free of emotion. Bhakti is to be full of emotion. But emotion in relationship with Krishna. All others are not so important to the realized devotee. And so if something good happens, okay. Something bad happens, okay. I'm unmoved by material circumstance. But I'm always moved by spiritual life. This is very important because sometimes in devotional life we speak so much about material world and no happiness. We think, oh, I should be very, grave. Yes, that is a quality. But the ecstatic symptoms of bhakti are one to be relished. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains to Rupa Goswami about this, softness of the heart that should develop from devotional service. So when Krishna is speaking here, we should understand equal in happiness and distress related to the body. And why should one be equal in happiness and distress as it relates to the body? Why?
The body is not permanent. The material creation is not permanent.
The material creation is not permanent. The body is not permanent. And what's the central reason we should not have any concern for what happens?
Because we are spirit souls anyway, right?
Yeah, we're not the body. We're not the body. At least we should prioritize. It's not that we should ignore the body. If you're driving down the street in your car, you care more about your own happiness or the car's happiness? If you had a choice between your happiness and the car's happiness, which you'll choose?
Yours.
Of course, that's a silly question, right?
Yeah.
Because I am not the car.
Right.
So similarly, you're going to choose between your body's happiness and your soul's happiness. Which are you going to choose?
Soul's happiness.
Because I am the soul. Now the car is important because it plays a role in my devotional life in the material world. But if something doesn't happen so nicely to the body, what are some examples of distress to the body that disturb our consciousness?
Sickness,
Sickness,
old age.
old age,
Alien disease.
no hair,
Yeah.
gray hairs, old age, mosquito bites. These are all difficulties of the body. Somebody says, oh, that is not a very nice looking dhoti you're wearing or sari you're wearing. What? And then we'll go and look in the mirror. I think it looks okay. Right? But
Yeah.
a devotee says, okay, I'm not this body.
Even when somebody is saying something to you, that's also body. That will be also considered like someone is. If you feel that somebody is saying negative about you,
Yeah.
so that's also, again, affecting the body, not the soul, right?
Yeah. What are they saying? You're this, that, or the other, but that has nothing to do with my soul. And that's why Krishna says two qualities after happiness and distress. What does he say?
Tolerant and always satisfied.
Always satisfied. Well, if someone's always satisfied, then they don't worry about the ups and downs.
Yes.
I was reading one article about a businessman, and he had built a very successful business. And it's obviously going through some difficulty here, and the reporter had asked him, are you troubled by the condition of your business? He said, I'm not troubled by the condition of my business because I have already reached my satisfaction from prior experiences, so whatever happens here is okay. My minimum needs are met regardless of what happens to this business. So I'm detached from it. Still enthusiastic. And he said, and he made this very kind of socially responsible point, which is, we attach our happiness to so many things we can't control, like this situation that is affecting our. And I was thinking, wow, he just turns that a little bit further. He's spot on. He's spot on, right? So the devotee is always satisfied in what?
Relationship with Krishna.
Relationship with Krishna.
Yes.
Can COVID-19 affect one's relationship with Krishna?
No.
If it's too hot outside, can it be affected? If there's 6 feet of snow outside, can it be affected? If the stock market is down, the stock market's up. If someone says I'm ugly, If someone, criticizes me, is any of that affect my relationship with Krishna? Someone doesn't appreciate what I'm doing for them? Someone thinks that I'm not being a good friend? Whatever it is. How many of those emotions we have? We have them. And all of them are unaffected if one's happiness is centered in the relationship with Krishna. So one of the measures of our devotion, how much up and down do we have in bhakti? Because the pure devotee is always satisfied. Always. So if we are going through ups and downs, it means we are becoming tinged with some of these other bodily concepts. And one is always satisfied, then they become fixed in bhakti. How about tolerant? Tolerant like a tree. How is a tree tolerant?
No matter what.
If I say, tree, you're ugly, it didn't do anything. If I go and take shade from the tree in the heat sun, will it still give me shade, even though I criticized it? Tolerant like a tree, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. Tolerant to all the material struggles. Any other qualities anyone would like to discuss today?
Does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego. One thing I noticed in my path in devotional so far is I'm starting to subtly find the difference between people who are materialistically minded versus devotees, where people who are materialistically minded are constantly thinking about their bank accounts, how to increase money, how to do this new endeavor. They're in that anxiety.
Yes.
While devotees are not thinking about that. And I'm caught in a catch-22 as to, do I increase my devotion or do I give up that? Or, you know what, I'm subtly finding myself to associate my mind and intelligence with, I have a choice now how to associate it properly.
As soon as we think we are the proprietor, now I'm materially engaged. But if Krishna is the proprietor, we know one thing: whatever happens is perfect. Why? Because it's Krishna's plan. Our plan may not be, but it's Krishna's plan. So when we become free from sense of proprietorship, I, me, and mine, then anything else?
Fixed. Mind and intelligence fixed on. Fixed on the instructions of the master.
Fixed. How does one become fixed? Chanting. But what must be there to be fixed on anything?
Senses have to be
Faith.
controlled.
Huh?
Senses to be controlled.
Senses to be controlled.
Faith.
Attraction. How is a teenager so fixed on their cell phones? Forget teenagers, adults. We're all so fixed. Why? There's attraction, right? What message came? What's this? It's natural. There's some attraction. So when one is experiencing the attraction of Krishna, then naturally it'll be fixed. Fixed not blindly, with their intelligence. So this is a natural quality of bhakti. If you're always satisfied in something, why would you leave it? Right? If you're always satisfied, the reason we leave one activity to go to another is why? How many video games are out there? How many?
Thousands.
Thousands. Why are they thousands? Because if the first one was fully satisfying, you would never leave that to go to the second one. But you leave the first one to go to the second one because it's missing something. You get bored of it, it doesn't have some feature. So you move to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Just like movies, just like whatever it is. But when you come to Krishna, it's so completely satisfying that nothing else even can register. But until you try it, until you taste it, you'll think, that doesn't make sense because my video games are always not satisfying, so this must be the same. Any questions or comments?
Mind, intelligence, false ego are part of the subtle body.
Material. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, when we come across such people who envy or comment for any action we do, should we ignore the association because we face such people in our day-to-day activities?
Yeah. I mean, the best thing is to keep, respectful distance. We don't lose our understanding and care and compassion, but sometimes we have to, keep just a little bit of distance to not, endure that. But we want to be careful. We don't reciprocate. Don't become the enemy of the enemy. Right? That is the key. So, if one is envious of something that is happening, we can keep some distance because we're not so secure in our own consciousness, not so mature in our devotion that we can withstand such a situation. Then we keep respectful distance. But we never lose the respect. We never lose the care. Again, kind friend to all living entities. That's the important point to always remember. And yes, in the process of devotion, we should understand that there are going to be imperfections. People are going to be imperfect. But first look in the mirror and see we have our own imperfections. Right? So we don't become blind to those imperfections. We think, they don't exist. They're there, they're real. But we also don't judge or become, disrespectful because we have our own set of issues. Right? So we should collaborate and help purify together. Sometimes that's not possible. No problem. And let's find, ways that are suitable for everybody.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Danut Pranam. Is there any person take birth with transcendental qualities in this material world? If yes, then what was the reason for such transcendental person taking birth in this material world, if he was already pure in his previous birth?
So, yes, there are transcendental personalities who come from the spiritual world to the material world to carry out the mission of Krishna. And we have many such examples of personalities, the 6 Goswamis, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and our very own Srila Prabhupada. They exhibited transcendental qualities from childhood. They were pure devotees from childhood. They came from the spiritual world to conduct and carry out some business for Krishna. So they're not subjected to the laws of nature like we are, though we may see it externally. Right? So yes, it can happen. And also, someone who has performed much devotional service but hasn't completely finished the process. They may take their next birth, and that may be their final birth, in which one carries on from where they left off. So they may have and exhibit very nice, sweet, transcendental qualities from a young age. But we should understand that it is a progressive point of purification. So maybe they didn't quite fully finish. Just like Srila Prabhupada says in Srimad Bhagavatam, that most living entities, when they complete their time here and they're ready to go to the spiritual world, first they make one stop off. And where do they go? They go to one of the material universes where Krishna's pastimes are taking place. And they participate in those leelas as their final tune-up before they become ready to serve Krishna in the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada writes about this in the purport in Srimad Bhagavatam. Very sweet. So, there may be some progressive.
Prabhuji, if we are lucky, we can maybe join Srila Prabhupada in a different universe, in a different planet.
That is the mood. Janmani Shrey. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, birth after birth, just give me the privilege of devotional service.
Absolutely.
Any more questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. When Krishna says a person need to be friendly to all living entities, how is it possible in this material world, even a person in Krishna consciousness, without knowingly kills several entities while walking, or for his protection kills certain living creatures that can do harm to him? Does that mean we should not consciously do any harm to any living entities?
Yeah. So, that's a nice question, because even in the day-to-day life, we kill so many living entities. Driving our car, even in the air, there are so many living entities. And, we put some insecticide down and some insects. So, we must be conscious of that, and we minimize that to the absolute extent possible. But knowing that my whole life is a service to Krishna, if there are some incidental occurrences of this, Krishna will see to a proper end to that matter. Because my objective is in service to Krishna. Now we should not use that to rationalize. And Srila Prabhupada gave a very practical example of this. The devotees were once complaining that there were some mice in the kitchen. And he said, is it okay to kill the mice? Because they are spoiling the bhoga. The bhoga that is going to be used for Krishna. Right? So the logical maybe conclusion, to save the bhoga to offer to Krishna, we may have to take the mice away. But what was Srila Prabhupada's answer? You keep the kitchen so clean that the mice will not find any food there and they'll have to go somewhere else. Right? Such a practical and perfect answer. So the point is, our consciousness should be, we should try to spare every living entity. Mugari the hunter, who was leaving half-dead animals in the forest after being blessed by the associates of Narada Muni, would not even step without making sure there was not an ant in his footstep. So that is the goal. And if we do have some incidental occurrences that are done innocently, without without being lazy or lax, then we can understand Krishna will help see that to a positive outcome, because we are trying our level best to serve him and understand that there may be some occurrences. More?
Yes. Last one. Could the different video games and movies be there because they are trying to target a different component of the senses And since not all our senses are not being satisfied, we move on to the next one. Whereas in Krishna consciousness, it is all engrossing and satisfies all senses. Just like watering the root versus watering the branches.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything material will not be completely satisfied by nature. Name one thing you've experienced in your material life that's been fully satisfying. Not one. Because if it was, you'd do it every day. So just look every day which activity you can do. It's not. But Krishna consciousness, spiritual life, because that is the nature of the soul, it is fully satisfying. And there's a scientific reason for it. What is that reason? Krishna is the source of everything. So whatever we experience in this material world, whatever pleasures we experience, where does that come from?
Krishna.
And so if it has in some amount here, what does the source have?
Full.
That same rasa in full. So Krishna in the 7th chapter, we'll be discussing
Yes.
tomorrow, he says, I'm the taste of water. Well, what does he mean, taste of water? Well, the satisfying agent within water is me. Krishna is a satisfying agent of everything within the material world. But this material world is just but a spark of this splendor. And so that's why the material world, pleasures, they're very small in comparison to the spiritual world with Krishna. And Krishna is all satisfying because he is the source of everything. If he wasn't the source of everything, we could not say all satisfying. Why? Because it means there could be some satisfaction somewhere else. Right? Just by definition. In order to say all satisfying, it means he must be the source of everything. Otherwise, there might be some other element within the creation that would be pleasing. If it didn't come from Krishna, then he could not be considered all satisfying. Is that logic making sense?
Mm-hmm.
Just had a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Like, why actually? I know it's a very dumb question, but why this is material energy is also Krishna's energy,
Yeah.
right? So why that is not satisfying when we are saying everything of Krishna should be satisfying? Is it because that is inferior and this other is superior energy? That's why. Because if it's a source is Krishna, so everything should be satisfying, right?
It could be, but we are very grateful to Krishna because
that-
he has created the material world in a way that is not satisfying.
Then we can move.
Because we are trying to enjoy Krishna indirectly. Right? Because you're right. Everything we experience is Krishna's energy. So we are never disconnected from him. But Maya convinces we are. So this creation is created in such a way to give us gentle slaps along the way that this is not where you're going to find happiness. And inspire us to go back. Just like the prison house. The prison house is made in such a way to give difficulty to purify. Not make you perish in prison, but limited facilities so that you're inspired to purify, to go to a higher place. So yeah, Krishna could have, of course, manufactured the material world to be full of bliss and happiness.
Then we will
Could
not
have.
be there. Motivation will not be there.
Yeah, but he made it in a way that is compassionate. Just like when a child misbehaves, the mother and father arrange a situation to give some punishment, some difficulty. Later that child realizes, that was for my good. Had I not learned that lesson as a child, I would have committed bigger problems later in life. Srila Prabhupada was giving a lecture I was listening to recently, and a little bit long story, I'll just summarize it briefly. There was a young boy who in his childhood was doing some stealing, and he was being cared for by his aunt. and his aunt did not chastise him. And later this boy grew up to be a young man, and he committed one murder. And so this aunt was very devastated, and this young man was ready to be hanged. And they asked, "What would you like for your last wish?" He said, "I would like to speak with my aunt." And the aunt came, and she was devastated and crying, and, "Wow, you could do this, what happened?" And he said, "Had you corrected me when I was stealing, I would have never progressed to the stage of this." So Srila Prabhupada was using that to illustrate a point that the devotee sees these corrections as a blessing to, before things get really bad, I can deviate from the path. So sometimes when we hear corrective advice from someone, it's painful sometimes. It's difficult to tolerate. Sometimes we start to doubt and have these, it's hard. But actually, it's for our blessing, it's for our benefit. And this young man was saying, had you corrected me, yes, I might not have liked it at the time. I acknowledge that. Of course, the aunt was not correcting because she didn't want to make him feel bad. So Prabhupada was explaining that, sometimes out of love, we have to give some difficult situation. But our motive is there. So Krishna, out of his love, is manufactured this world in a place that's not so pleasant. Of course, he could have made it full of perfection. But we're grateful he didn't. Otherwise, we would never remember our eternal relationship and experience the happiness of bhakti.
Actually, we get a third answer, third reason why we get difficulties. One is that we can surrender more. One you said that this is a part of a reaction. And third is it is a means of correction.
It's a reminder of our mistakes.
I had one more
Yes,
question.
please.
You get
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just had a question that when we talked about this equipoise thing, then you said it's related more to the body platform, right? Not on the spiritual. Because we can get feelings of, as you mentioned, ecstasy, right? Of not that was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but as such might get more excited when. Can we get more excited in devotional service and at the same time disappointed in devotional service? Because now we're talking about in the spiritual thing, but then is it mixed with material stuff?
So, it's a good question because, see, there should be no disappointment in devotional service, right? If our goal is one,
I mean, disappointment in the sense.
Anukulina, Krishna. If our excitement in bhakti is the pleasure of Krishna,
Like it's disappointment in the sense we're feeling that not getting that result. We could have done so much more for Krishna. That way, I'm saying.
yeah, that's okay. That's the the impetus to be more enthusiastic, to be determined. Oh, let me.
We could have done more.
Right.
Yeah. That. I'm sorry. So yes, that type of motivating disappointment, if you could say, is there. But we have to make sure that we don't go to the point where it becomes
Depression.
it disables our enthusiasm to serve, right? Because we have such a controlling mentality. I put all this effort into this. I put so much time and energy,
Right.
and it didn't work. Forget it. I'm done. I'm not doing it again.
Not good.
Right? So those things happen.
Right.
So in that case, we should say, I had so much opportunity to put so much effort to serve Krishna. I'm so happy. And thankfully, he fixed it because it didn't go right. Surely if it had gone the way I wanted, it would have been a disaster, but Krishna's plan is great. But I'm so grateful I got to work so hard in that endeavor. So that should be our mood. Because if we're surrendered to Krishna's plan, regardless of the outcome, we are happy. Because we know Krishna's plan is supreme. I may want X, Y, and Z, but if A, B, and C occurs, okay, that's what Krishna wanted. but I'm
Right.
grateful I had a chance to serve.
Yes.
So then, but then we can do some introspection and think, was I as determined? But our introspection should be not on how the result ended. Could I have done more in my service? Could I have been more attentive, right? I'm making chapatis and they are burned. I can't say, that was Krishna's plan. He wanted burned chapatis. I'm okay. I can think, no, actually I was concentrating on my cell phone, looking on Facebook, and the chapati burned. Right? Not that that's ever happened before. So we can correct ourselves through that type of analysis, and that mood is okay. That mood is okay. And you said the thing about happiness. We should enjoy bhakti.
That's what I'm saying. We can be excited.
Yes, we should be.
Yeah.
We should be ecstatic. We hear something wonderful, we read, we should share it, and this really moved me. We're not meant to be stone-like, right? We should relish Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada, he designed this system. It's full of bliss. We should experience the happiness. We should not subdue those emotions and try to be, again, we should, why Prabhupada established so many festivals? Festivals are fun. Who's missing festivals right now?
Oh my.
It's a pain. It's like a chunk of our heart has been ripped out. These festivals are so much joy and association of devotees and the mood, the kirtan, the prasad, the deep. It's a festival. Why Prabhupada did that? So we'd have fun in Krishna consciousness. So we can understand what the experience is like in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, everyone's not just sitting around equipoised. Everybody's in full bliss. There's like never-ending laughter and enjoyment and activity and variety. Right? So we should try to experience that in the spirit in our devotional service and not be shy of it. But if things don't go our way also, let's try to also be equally happy. That's the little bit harder part, but we can try. Don't mute the experience. Relish it, enjoy it. Yes.
I had a follow-up
Yes.
to the other one. So how can you distinguish between like a correction versus someone judging you?
Well, you first, who the source of the correction. So when someone is correcting us, we should have confidence and faith that that person has no self-motive. That their motive is only to help. So when Guru corrects us, it can be heavy and difficult. But we know why. Because he wants to help us. When mother or father corrects child, why do they do it? Out of love, right? So if I have that relationship with somebody and they're correcting, then I should know it is not judgment. If I don't have that relationship with somebody, then we can store it away and think, maybe there's some truth to it. Let me analyze and see what's there. Somebody has said this, and maybe there's something there, and let me contemplate. So we can't open up ourselves to judgment of everybody, otherwise we'll be thrown around like a ping pong, right? We have to be mindful of that. But we can understand where it's coming from. And is that okay? Does that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yes. There's another follow-up question. So coming back to the earlier question, Prabhuji, could it also be interpreted that the living entity was expected to die and I was to be the cause for Krishna's plan?
We can understand that's possibly the case, but we got to be careful we don't use that to then rationalize our irresponsible behavior or maybe lackadaisical behavior. So we can understand that if in the due course of our very attentive service something happens, yes, we don't have to lament. We can think that is Krishna's plan. Something happened. something bad happened, something, difficulty happened to somebody, yeah, maybe we see it as our fault. We had a role in doing that. But we can also understand if, I did my best, I can take comfort that yes, it is Krishna's fault. And so we don't use it to rationalize irresponsible behavior, and we don't use it to make us into an unstable mental state because something happened beyond our control. There things can happen inadvertently in spiritual life, and I remember several such incidents in Rath Yatra where some not so pleasant things have happened, and you wonder, well, could we have done something differently? Could we have done something? But at the end of the day, I have to surrender, to Lord Jagannath's mercy, and so yeah, you can do that and understand that. I'm driving to the temple and I'm killing so many bugs on my windshield. Okay, what can I do?
Maybe can you talk about the principle of tolerance and determination of devotional service in terms of in the mood of Queen Kunti's prayers? Like, for example, it's like this COVID situation. We're restricted on our travels and where we associate, who we associate with. So how do we use that as an opportunity to like double down on chanting or double down on our devotional service, where however we can do it? Like, how do we turn that opportunity to determination?
The tolerance is that whatever the circumstances, I'm not going to let it get in the way of my devotional service. And so, okay, I can't travel as much. Hey, I can read more because I'm not spending an hour driving each way to work every day because I have to work from home now. Okay, I'm not able to, go to this thing, whatever it might be, so I'm going to use that more time to read, to chant. I can find the silver lining, I was very grateful that, COVID, the one thing I learned how to play the harmonium. It wouldn't happen. Years. So, what can we do? I shouldn't say I learned, I attempted. It's still a hack. But, my Guruji here is laughing at me every time I play. But the point is, whatever the circumstance we're faced, play the cards you've been dealt.
Yeah. Make the best of it.
Make the best of it.
Exactly.
Tolerate it.
I'm learning to
Lie lament. Right? More? No?
Say something.
Yes.
When there's something negative that comes from the other side, then before kind of thinking, passing judgment on that person, one should introspect on our own self if we have own shortcomings. But always we will have our own shortcomings anyway. Those will never be removed. So then, how do kind of...
If someone is critical of us,
Yes.
it doesn't mean if someone's critical of us, they're right. It doesn't mean they're right. They may be wrong in their action. They may be very wrong in their action.
Yeah, so then how do we... But then
Yes.
I'm not perfect either, right?
Right.
So then...
So, when someone does something wrong to me, it happened recently, it doesn't make their action right. But my interpretation of that action should be, okay, it is due to their conditioning. Why I should become so inimical back? It is just due to their conditioning. I'll pray for this person that they can purify and I can purify. So it doesn't make their action right.
Okay.
Right? Their action's wrong. Why? Because they're imperfect, I'm imperfect.
Okay.
Right? I think you might have asked a question the other day about, if we're supposed to, kind of respect and serve all devotees, then we should serve them all. Well, all pure devotees. Right? Because, like, in the platform Pure Devotional Service, they're all pure. But in the Sadhaka platform, we're not. So, but we should love them all, have respect from them all, but we can't necessarily interact. We have to be aware of the shortcomings that present. And are those shortcomings dangerous for my own development of bhakti? Right? Are they going to have an impact on. So we can acknowledge that they exist, but we also don't think, oh, yeah, I don't like this person anymore. No, we just understand their conditioning is leading to those, and then we understand I also have my own imperfections, right? So it's a good, very important clarification, because it doesn't negate the fact that there was some bad, incorrect behavior. Just because it's an instrument of my karma for someone to criticize me, doesn't make that criticism right. That criticism's still wrong.
But then am I not passing judgment that?
Huh?
Am I not passing a judgment there? That
No, you are passing judgment.
we are passing it.
Yeah, that the action is right or wrong, but it doesn't lead to you not being friendly to that person, at least in your heart. That right? Yes, that action is wrong. I'm not in a position to correct that, so I can't offer comment to your question because I'm not in that relationship with that person to correct it. So I'll keep respectful distance. Why? Because it's not going to happen. But the analysis of right or wrong, that's okay. But I don't judge the person to be a fallen rascal,
Yes.
right? Or carry that feeling. Or worse, reciprocate. Well, you think I'm this, but you're this. Don't do that, right? No. Yes, I am this. Thank you for shining a light on my. They may be wrong. You can still do that and step away, remove yourself.
So one thing last.
Yeah.
So basically, at that point of time, even if the other person is wrong, still accepting that person's statement is then that's okay, right? So it's not. You're getting my point. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So say it again.
Like if the other person is wrong, and then whatever they're saying, we can just accept whatever the other person is saying, even if it's wrong. No, I accept it.
Yeah.